What's up, everybody? Yo, you
Hmm.
didn't have like a long, like, whoa.
Oh, not today.
Yeah, I always expect like a little Mario,
This
like, whoa, 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 whoa,
is
or something like that. I
this
don't
is
know.
a this is an interesting one today.
Yeah, it is. Well, everyone, welcome to Beardsby Rankin, the show where we do topics. Yeah, that's
I
right.
guess we're trying something a little different this time.
Just a little different. You know, we got some stuff going on in our lives that we're just gonna try this out and see how everyone likes us just talking about a
Yeah, man.
topic. You know, I think one
Yeah.
thing that you guys don't really kind of get to hear that Justin and I work together, and I think we often will talk about stuff that doesn't even make it onto the shows, or we'll get started on something during the show, and we just kind of have to move on. And I thought this would be kind of a really cool way for us to kind of bring some of these topics that we wanted to go a little further in and talk about. And that way you guys
Hmm.
kind of get to participate in the discussion that we have. Like, I mean, there's so many things that, we've been a part of the music industry, or at least like, trying to make it into the music industry.
Yeah.
I say that because, like we've played a lot of shows. We played, in Nashville. We've done recordings. And there's so we're opinionated. We try to keep our hand, or I guess our ears on the pulse, if you will, of what's
We're
going on
trying.
in the music world.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
I
man.
thought this would be kind of like a fun thing to try out and actually just kind of just talk shop, you know, not necessarily taking a rank this week, but definitely we'll get right back to it. And so if
Yep.
you're wondering what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about something that looking back on some of the nostalgic stuff that we've talked about and even some current modern day things is going to be how we consume music.
Hmm.
Yeah. And Justin, I use my ears.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
This is
That
over.
was
This
it.
episode's over.
Discussion over.
Yeah.
Now, how we is like
Yeah.
people get our music, And I think that's one of those things that we kind of take for granted today because most of us just use streaming services.
Yeah. I mean, it's a love-hate thing I got going on with that.
Yeah, with like
But
streaming music, but there was a
yeah.
time before you could just do that. And I want to talk about some of the stuff from the before times, and then we'll get into some
Hmm.
of the current times, okay? So Justin, I got a question for you, bud. What
All
was
right, lay it
the
on me.
first way that you could listen to music?
That I could listen to music?
Like, think of it this way, and I know that's kind of like a weird question to ask, but like, did you start off with the cassette? I almost put my thumb up there. I knew better.
I feel like when I really started to get, you know, really into music, it was more CD based. Like my sister, who's 5 years older than I am, she had cassettes.
Yeah.
Like they were around the house and stuff, but I remember I did used to. She had like one of those big stereos, and I
Yeah.
could like record onto like a blank cassette from the radio.
Yep.
So I would do that. And we had like a Walkman and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I remember recording like what was No Leaf Clover, the
The
Metallica
Metallica?
song.
Yeah.
Dude, I
Wait,
used to
from
love
the
that song.
S&M album, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to love that song, and just I'd have to wait, for the radio station at night to be like, let's hope they play it today, and I
Yeah.
got to sit there and wait to, But
Yeah, I
so
don't
yeah, I mean, I didn't really have. I don't remember owning any cassettes myself, like for certain. It was probably like late '90s when I started getting into music, like buying music.
right.
When I was like 12 years old or something. But
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
Like late 90s, like dude, my sister had cassettes. I think the first cassette I remember owning was the 311 cassette.
Oh wow, nice.
But I remember, yeah, like making a mixed cassette. And like having like I had I had one of the big boys, one of the big like boom boxes as we call them, you know? And I had one of those, and I also had like a tiny, like a smaller one, but it was still fairly sizable. Like it was about the size of like a basketball. But yeah, you know what I'm talking about, those like basketball sized ones.
I feel like we have one of those at our rehearsal space.
We do. We do.
Yeah. It might be mine.
It might be yours. But I did the same thing where like I could take one of my like sister CDs and I could put in a cassette tape and I could play the track that I wanted and then hit like the play record button and I was able to record. In fact, funny enough, now that I think of it, that I had a boombox and it was like your classic like I guess I don't know, whatever this size. It was really small, but it had a record function and a mic. And I remember in college, one of the first times like working on recording my voice was on this awful microphone using a cassette, some cassette that I had that I could still write on because you could pull the tab. And this one, it was still fresh, so I could just rewind, re-record. I thought that was great technology, but that's what I went into college with. And of course, CDs had been out for quite a while, but for some reason I had this ancient technology around still.
Hey man, if it ain't broke.
If it ain't broke.
But
so you never really messed too much with the cassettes. Do you remember what your first? So obviously you were a CD guy.
Yeah, man. As far as like first CDs I ever owned, I can't remember if the first one was the Space Jam soundtrack.
Oh, nice.
Or if it was like this song, like the theme music soundtrack for like WWF.
Like
it was just a collection
songs?
of like their walkout music. Like it had the Stone Cold music. I mean, it's showing you this was like the height, or I mean, I feel like the '90s were like the height of like WWF.
Yeah, man. Why would you ever buy another CD? You already got the best one.
Yeah. I remember those two for sure. And then, then high school and junior high ruined everything.
It ruined
Got into nu metal and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I remember, I think some of my first CDs, I'm a little younger than you. Okay. Not by much, but my first, I want to say it was like a Britney Spears CD. It had to be like Britney Spears or the Backstreet Boys. Now, before you think, who is this joker here? For real, that was like the biggest stuff. And it was like, what, 98, 97? I had to be like 8 years old. 8 or 9.
Britney was real popping off. Like 99, I think, was the big year for all of them.
Yeah. And, well, Backstreet Boys, they had that whole like millennium thing, and I remember that. And dude, those like, I wore those out. But that was all I was marketed because, you'd watch like, you're 8 years old, you're watching Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, and Disney Channel.
Yeah.
And Disney Channel was all about like the pop kind of, and plus Britney Spears was like an old like Mickey Mouse Club like person. So like, dude, it was just forced down my throat. I had, you heard it here. I had Britney Spears forced down my throat, and some Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. I had them. I had a 98 Degree CD. I remember that. Man, but I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then from that point, I think I got into like jazz music because that's the natural progression, right?
Yeah. Naturally.
I
mean, the musicality within those, collectives are pretty top notch, So,
well, they had
the natural transition.
Yeah, they had the best writers.
Yeah.
Because they were just money machines. The Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears and them, they were just money machines, man. And so you would hire the top talent, the best you could get, in order to like write these songs. And there's a couple of them that like have some really cool, complex chord progressions and some fat bass lines, dude.
Yeah.
Bow.
Yeah, I mean, they know what they're doing. Like, I mean, you hear them. I've seen some documentaries about, at least NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, and they'll do some acapella stuff, and it's like, okay, all right,
They could sing.
I'm sold.
Yeah, I I still like them. You know that
Hmm.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine skit where
Yeah,
he's getting the guys in the lineup to do the "You Are," dude.
yeah.
One of the best cold opens of a show ever. So good. So
That's awesome.
you, so we're CD people.
Yep.
How scale 1 to 10? How good did you like CDs?
Oh, loved them, man. I mean, that's. I'll be honest. I don't buy much music unless it's gear.
Yeah,
That's about all I like. I would buy CDs constantly. I feel like. I mean, I was a big fan of the booklets, like the big Trapper Keepers, and you know, putting the CD booklet in and the CD on top of it, and just how it all looked. And I was like obsessed for a while. I was just trying to collect as much as I could.
right. Like it was the bigger the more like legit you were.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah,
And
you'd have some people with like the small like wallet sized one. They were posers.
yeah.
And then you'd have the people that had the 2 tier also posing. You had to have like seriously like a 4-inch ring binder sized one, and that's how you knew. And it had to everyone had to have the actual CD booklet,
Yeah.
right? And how did you organize yours?
Oh man.
Did you just go
I feel like it.
haywire? Did you just let it
I,
run amok?
I feel like I maybe at one point tried to go like alphabetically, and then like after a while I was like just putting my favorites like in front or something.
That makes sense.
I don't, dude. I can't even remember that, but I just remember that's how I did it.
Right. I was an alphabetical boy. I
Yeah, I
totally
think.
went the alphabetical route. You know,
Yeah.
it always went like left or right, left or
Mm-hmm.
right. I'm trying to do it for the people on the watching this. I went
Yeah.
from left to right, top to bottom, alphabetical, and by band, not by album
Yeah.
title. It had to be by
Oh yeah.
band.
It had to be by band.
And then I think when it was the by band, like let's say it was Nirvana, I did it by
Mm-hmm.
release.
Oh, nah. You went.
I went all out, man.
Yeah. You went ham on it.
Yeah, I wanted to get, like if you had if you had Nirvana, first one was
Yeah.
Bleach,
Yeah.
next one was Nevermind, then In Utero, maybe I might have had Incesticide on CD.
Yeah.
And
I don't
then
think I went. I don't think I went by year. I don't think I got that crazy with it.
it just made more sense to me to go like
Yeah.
you have your early years seems to make more logical sense to start with, and then you go towards,
Mm-hmm.
but I also agree like if you like wanted to just now, okay. So I would have my booklet, my Trapper Keeper of CDs,
Yep.
and so those would be like all my music, and then I would have if I wanted to listen to like a very particular album, and then I would make mix CDs if I wanted like a playlist, like a jam, like this this mix CD is a little bit of everything, and of course going back to kind of we're talking about CDs. There was a long time where like burning CDs, like
Mm-hmm.
especially when I was in high school, like having iTunes and downloading the CD, the MP3, and then burning them to a CD. Like, and it was a nightmare to do, but making the mixtapes that way with the CD, because I'd spent hours taking all my CDs and putting them in my CD drive and then having them burn off the CD just so I could have them like
Yeah.
a computer,
Yep.
you know? But making those mix
Mm-hmm.
CDs, those never actually ended up in my Trapper Keeper.
Yeah.
Those ended up in the flimsiest like plastic jewel cases that would
Yeah.
sit in like the where you're supposed to keep your ice scraper in your door,
Yep.
like where you're obviously supposed to keep your trash. I would just keep CDs all just lined up there at a kind of like if I had a gun on my hip, CD time. You know,
Awesome. Yeah, man.
You know, most of those mix CDs, now that I think of it, all had like the same 12 songs with like 3 or 4 that got like interchanged.
Yeah. I remember when I would upload the CD to my computer, there were times where it like would mess up uploading or like the CD was scratched and then I wouldn't realize it until I like burned it to like a mix and then like it would just have these random, stutters or just glitch outs or something and
Like by the initial CD having a scratch, you imported a scratch onto your like
yep.
to your mix CD.
Yeah, like the computer just like somehow it just registered that scratch. Did that ever happen to you?
Yeah, or like it would like
I remember that.
It wouldn't like scratch so much as it would just skip in time. Like it would just jump ahead like a second.
Yeah.
Or like dude, I want to say like I remember like you would sit there trying to burn a CD or like I guess rip a CD because you're ripping the files off of it. And if your CD had like a scratch on it, your computer just like I want to say I remember mine just saying, "What are you doing?
No CD. There's like
I can't
no
upload one of
here.
these songs if the other one has a scratch on it."
Yeah.
Or like and this was not like a quick process. You know, my computer had in college, my first computer I think had 250 megabytes on it.
Nice.
Megabytes.
I couldn't tell you. Yeah. I couldn't tell you my first one. And again, I didn't know like what computer storage was.
Right.
It was just this is what my family has. It doesn't matter. It plays videos.
Yeah.
That's fine.
It never mattered to me. But you could like click on it and see like the C drive and you'd see that little bar. And that bar meant nothing to me. I got like that much room left on it. That's one CD right there.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know why this thing's so slow. It was working fine a minute ago. And dude, just do you remember speaking of like did you mostly use iTunes?
Man, it kind of varied cuz I was never an Apple user growing up, but I in college is when I actually like 2000 it took me till like 2006 or 7 to even download iTunes, I want to say. And it was just gross Windows Media setup.
One of the worst players.
It was awful. Maybe it was like later high school that I finally got it. I can't remember when I actually got it, but I do remember in college I was like obsessed with like doing the same thing, making sure they all had the artwork. And then that was definitely alphabetically. That's when I was like getting real organized with the stuff.
Dude, I remember so like iTunes back then, now it's like Apple Music. And I don't really mess with Apple Music too much.
I've still got iTunes on this computer. Actually, I think I deleted it like yesterday.
Really?
Because I don't even use it anymore. Like, I used to like upload anything I created, like musically, I'd put on my phone, but now I just throw it in the Google Drive. For some reason, I just don't use iTunes. Like, because my phone won't register. I don't even have a Mac computer, so it's like still.
And it's funky.
Yeah.
But I remember like so iTunes, if you bought something off the iTunes store, you know, you paid like 99 cents a song, or it was like $10 an album or something like that, depending on how many songs. It came with all the artwork and the lyrics and all that stuff was like encoded into the song. But if you ripped it off your CD, iTunes didn't know what was there. So you would I spent days where I would rip a CD, and this was really early. Eventually, they kind of got to where you could find it would analyze the CD and stuff and be like, "Hey, it's this." Yeah. But I would sit there and I would put the album, the title, the artist, the whatever. If it had artwork, I still have "Waken the Fallen" on my iTunes. Back in the day, I couldn't find the album artwork because internet was really slow back then. You had to commit if you wanted to like download a picture. So I found like just a picture of them And what's funny too is like I want to say if you go to my like iTunes and you like click on my or like the Apple Music that it is now, if you click on Avenged Sevenfold, I think it's still that image that I imported all those years ago. Not if I was to like stream it, but if I was to use like the memory, like the I own this kind of stuff. And I think that's crazy. I actually had time to do all that.
Wow. Yeah. Dude, I remember. Oh, sorry. Yeah. We had a buddy living with us in college, and he was a friend of ours. Well, he wasn't actually like paying rent there. He was just like staying on the couch. So,
as you do,
a buddy who was actually paying rent, like since this guy wasn't like doing anything, like we're all working and stuff, he just like, hey, he made him like organize his entire iTunes library because it was just like, he's like, I want this done when I get back.
Nice.
He just had to sit there and do that for a day because he had so much music. Like
the friend or the guy who was staying on the couch.
No, the roommate.
Your roommate.
Yeah, and his friend.
You're gonna have to tell me these names. I don't think I've heard this story before. Later, tell me the names later. I know
you know who you are.
I know who one of them is, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude. I just think it's so crazy, and I remember like moving on from CDs. There was a point, I can't remember if I was in college. I think I was in college because I remember I had an iPod, right? So somewhere around like 2003, the iPod came out. Did you? When did you get? Did you get an iPod?
Dude, the iPhone didn't even come out till like 07.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah. So I don't think I had the first gen. I think I had the video one, which was like 06.
Yeah. That's the one I had. With
okay.
The iPod video, and you still had like the scroll wheel. And dude, that blew my mind back then.
Yeah.
Like having that, like you could, and like there was no buttons it was that scroll wheel and you had the cardinal directions to like mess with stuff. And I remember it was so cool because I had other MP3 players that were okay, but you could literally only maybe put, I don't know, 2 or 3 CDs on there.
Mm-hmm.
But Justin, I think that was the birth of me wanting them all. I wanted that huge Trapper Keeper full of CDs onto a device. And so when I had that iPod, it was a 32 gigabyte iPod. It was supposed to hold something like 10,999 songs.
Yeah.
Plus video.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was
I don't think
really
I
cool.
ever put videos on it.
Dude, did you ever buy any?
I don't think so.
You never did? Okay, so when I got the iPod video, obviously I'm super stoked and I want to use it for its video function. At least one, right?
Yeah.
So I bought 2, as I do. And the first one, just to kind of show you what was kind of popular, the first one was Tribute by Tenacious D.
Oh, nice.
That was the first video I put on there. Still a great video. Go check it out. That is, if you haven't seen it, it's awesome. Mm-hmm. And then the second one was that Gwen Stefani song where she spells banana. I don't know why.
Random jump.
It was just like the first one. It's like that was what was kind of popular, and I remember like that was like in being able. So like this is back when I had a flip phone. Mm-hmm. So this iPod with like the video player on it was like, like holy crap! It was good looking video, and on a screen that was probably like 1.5 inches by like 2 inches.
Yeah.
Like it was tiny compared to like when I finally got like.
Dude, hold up.
Uh-oh.
Still got it.
Look at that thing. Does it still work? Does it still turn on?
I think if I plugged it in, it would.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have any of those cables anymore.
I've got, that cable was still plugged into it.
Yeah, like it was such a cool device. It was one of my favorite, like I got it for Christmas because I was poor and broke and I couldn't afford it. And I
I think
remember
I did
like
too.
one of the first things like I got for it was a case because it was
Oh, yeah.
precious. And then I got
Never got a case for that.
an FM transmitter
Yep.
because my car was stock. And we can kind of jump back real quick. My car was a 95 Civic that came standard with a deluxe cassette player. But by the time that I could drive, I had only CDs. So I had to get a Discman that would skip every time you went over a bump. So already perfect. And then this, like, it was so crazy. And I still don't know how they work, but it was like a cassette with like a cable coming off of it. And you'd plug it into the headphone jack of the Discman, and you could plug the cassette into the cassette player. And somehow by magic, it worked. That you could play songs on your CD player and it would come through my stereo. And then when I got the iPod, well, actually, I had someone steal my radio, and then I went and bought a new radio for my car, and I had a CD player. And then that was really cool. And then eventually, yeah, so that's actually, now that I'm remembering. And then eventually I got to where I have the
I don't know why it's so funny to me.
theft is funny, Justin.
Yeah, it just out of nowhere. Oh,
Yeah, I forgot
sorry,
that
that
someone had
happened.
stolen my original radio, which is like heartbreaking. It was like the first like theft experience I can remember in my life. Like someone stole from me out of my car, broke my window. I was heartbroken. I was supposed to perform in a play that day. Like a high school play, and I couldn't do it. I was torn. I felt violated.
Tragic.
Don't steal from people.
And it's because you driving them. It was a red 95 Civic.
It was
right.
Beauty.
Yeah, you got that
Beautiful
cherry
car.
red car.
Called it
People
Rhonda.
gonna steal out of it, dude.
Rhonda for the red Honda.
Red Honda.
Red Honda. So I got the FM transmitter from the iPod, and this was before like Bluetooth was just like standard in cars. So like having that functionality of being able to just transmit from my like iPod to like a radio station of my choosing, which I always really hoped for some reason somebody driving next to me on the interstate would also find that channel.
Could you transmit from these?
Yeah. You had to buy a device that you like you could either buy like a cable with the transmitter like dangling from it, or I did have that actually.
Yeah.
I owned a couple of them. I remember that was something like once I
was thinking like more Bluetooth. I was like, this thing don't got Bluetooth.
No.
Yeah, just the 8mm or whatever.
Yeah, just like the 8mm. Or this one like functioned off of it went into the power socket.
Yeah, yeah.
And from that power socket it could transmit, which was like brand new technology to me. And then I could put the power cable into the bottom of that and charge it at the same time. It was really cool. Man, this is back when you had to buy cool accessories for your device.
Yeah.
You know? And speaking of devices, once I got like the iPod Touch and the whole iPhone came out and everything, and then you could download apps and everything for it, the game changed.
Yeah.
You know?
For sure.
And that leads us probably, Justin, to my next question. You know, so we talked about how we used to consume music. How are you consuming your music these days?
Mostly Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
And it I'm definitely not an Apple Music user. But yeah, it took me a while to find like the release radar.
Yeah.
Which it updates like every Friday. So every Friday, and I've definitely, tethered Spotify to my specific taste. So most of the stuff is pretty banging, dude. And, I follow YouTubers that do reactions and stuff, and they show me some new music from time to time. And so, yeah, mostly just YouTube and Spotify, I'd say. And it's a lot, man. It can get a little. I think it was this past Friday. Maybe I was just in a bad mood or something. But like, I was all these songs were new, and I was just like, this sounds terrible.
Yeah.
skip. Oh God, this sounds terrible. Skip.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
just like, I don't know. Sometimes it's not always like on point on Fridays, but
So mostly Spotify, and that's how you find like new music. And I know we've talked about this in the past, like how I've, remember finding new music is, obviously like my relatives being forced to listen to stuff on car trips, like from my parents. Obviously whatever I could, it was all mainstream stuff until I got
yeah.
into like high school, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when you had like your MySpace days where you'd go and like find a band on MySpace, or like you'd see a band who they were touring with, and then you go to their like MySpace so you could listen to their music like before you go to the show, so you can kind of get like acquainted.
Yeah.
And then that was always like super fun. Like can't remember if it was like Horse the Band or Job for a Cowboy or one of those bands. But so back in MySpace, you used to have like a top 8, right?
Yeah.
And then and that was a huge deal. And we could talk about MySpace a little more in depth. But one thing that I always thought was funny is one of those two bands, for their top 8, it was really customary for like bands to put whoever they were on tour with as part of their top 8, or to put like whoever else was on their label. This band just had different pizzas. Pizzas, like number 1, their number 1 friend was pizza. Number 2 friend was pizza. And it was all these different pizza pages. And I was like, way to break the system, man.
Yeah.
Way to do it. I always thought that was super cool.
Sounds like Horse the Band.
I think it was Horse the Band.
Yeah.
But, it's like one of those things of like, so I would find music that way. I'd find it via pure volume. And nowadays, it is all Spotify. And I think Spotify has completely taken over our lives when it comes to like music. I like Spotify. I've used it for a long time. I remember, so I first heard of Spotify when my professor in college, and this was before I think it even got like all the major labels on it. Yeah. So like it was like hit or miss if like a certain band was going to be on Spotify, just because they didn't have the rights to all the music. Spotify being a Swedish company, I'm sure they had a whole bunch of different rights for for international company, or and I think with Spotify, like when I remember first getting it, and I was just so impressed.
Yeah. I mean, even back then, I mean, it's hard to remember exactly what it was like, because I think I got it in like 2012, something like that, 13 or something. But I was way impressed back then.
Was it because we were living together when I first got Spotify?
2012. Yeah.
I remember showing you. Did you? Because back then it was paid only. You didn't have the option to. You didn't have the option to have the ad free. Did you wait until the ad free came out, or did you just go ahead and get a subscription?
I feel like I used yours.
That makes sense.
I feel like I did, because at one point I think we like your Facebook would it would show like what you were listening to.
Yeah, it did.
And Jeremy and I found out about that at work when him and I used to work together. And we would play the most ridiculous stuff, so it would just show up on your Facebook.
Right. Oh, I forgot about that.
I think I had your login for a minute, and then I finally got it like maybe a year or two after that.
Right. Well, see, like Spotify started like integrating into their own like app.
Yeah.
And, like I remember, I think I first had it on my computer, and then eventually I think I got it onto like an app on my. And again, this was before I think I had a smartphone, so I had it on at least my like Apple iPod Touch, which is like a smartphone, but you just couldn't go anywhere without Wi-Fi on it. You had to be in a Wi-Fi zone, a hotspot.
Yep.
And like I remember when like a feed, like you could sit there and you'd be listening to stuff, and I don't know if they still do this. I haven't like expanded my Spotify in a minute, where you could actually see what other friends of yours from like your Facebook was listening to on Spotify on your Spotify.
Yeah, I don't know if it still is either.
I mean, I'm looking at it right now. I can't really see, but I feel like I've seen it before
recently.
And I think that's one of those things that like I felt like it was going back to like those MySpace days of, or like even in high school when I would find new music from friends of mine. You know, with Spotify, with whatever I could see, whatever so and so was listening to, I could have that feel like, well, let me check it out.
Yeah.
You know, oh, hey, so and so and I have pretty similar music tastes. Let me go and check it out. You know?
Yeah. Now I just feel like, because I don't know if it did like related artists kind of thing. Like if you listen to one, Spotify is just going to recommend something that, you know, that they deem related to this band that you're checking out. So
Right. Whatever the algorithm says that is relatable.
Yeah.
Or the charts,
for
I
sure.
guess. I don't know. You
Yeah,
know,
I don't
and
know.
I've put on some like playlists that have like I'm really in a metal mood. Let me throw on some, you know, I don't
Mhm.
know, Time the Valuator, you know, and
Yeah.
then it'll just go through like a bunch either stuff that I really just don't care about. You know, it tries to tailor it to what you want, and it always it
Yeah.
does. Sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. You know, I don't really mess too much
Mhm.
with the what is it called on Fridays? You're saying
Release radar.
the release radar, and I probably should because I really want to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I try to, because, well, starting this year, I mean, I've been doing like, top 20 or top 10 riffs of the month. So I try to feature artists maybe a lot of people don't know of.
Yeah,
Like if some band pops up, even if I've never heard of them, but the song is dope, I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to learn a riff from this song. And, you know, it's cool. That's what I do love about Spotify is, the algorithm kind of knows my taste pretty well. So I mean, I do discover a lot of new artists, and I do have a playlist going for my favorite music of this year. But I think just because the past 2 months I've just been trying to find new music, like I'm actively searching as
right.
much as I can. That I'm like, sometimes you just get burnt out. You're like, dude, I just need to go back. Going back to the old days, and I'll just put on an album. Like,
Right.
actually, the past few weeks, I've just put on this band called Other Lives, which is just very,
Right.
very chill, and like it calms me down, and like I just put it's one of the only bands I'll just click, their Spotify page and just play all.
Yeah.
And I don't have to skip like much of anything. It's all like it stays like the same feel, and it's just you can't. There's not a lot of bands that have that, so it seems,
Yeah.
at least to me. But
And they're super. You know, like they're. I really like Other Lives. I'm glad you
Yeah.
actually told me about them. You know.
dude, anytime I have anxiety, I just put that on, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it helps.
Insert a clip of one of their songs because I really dig this.
This damn thing right here, man.
Yeah.
I think it still works. Like, it might take it a minute to gain charge, but I think a lot of the stuff got deleted from it.
Well, the
when
problem
I,
is like I feel like nowadays you can't plug it back up to your computer. Like it will
Yeah.
it will short circuit if it has to be like you imagine like where you were at like a few years ago, and then
Yeah.
imagine like 50 years into the future, you just like come alive and you're like, where am I? Who are these
Dude,
people?
Dude, I remember I tried to, because I think, speaking of Spotify, I think it had a feature that you could like sync your iPod with it, or like upload all the music from your iPod
Yeah.
to your Spotify. And I tried that, and my computer like died in the process. And I mean, and it is loaded, dude. Like it would have taken like a day. I mean, with my computer, probably just hours and hours.
Hours
And it died, and I lost so much music, like stuff that was like
Oh.
demos old demos from my old bands. Like they're out there somewhere on burned discs, but I was so angry.
Yeah. Funny you say like they're on burned discs. My new computers don't have CD drives.
No, I don't think mine does either.
That technology is leaving us. And I mean, unfortunately, like as our devices get older, like if it's not in the cloud, you're going to lose it,
Yeah.
which is really sad and scary. So Justin, one
Mhm.
thing about Spotify. Now I was listening to a podcast called the Metal Sucks podcast. You probably are familiar with Metal Sucks, right?
Yep.
Where they
Mhm.
do metal news and stuff like that. And the host for the Metal Sucks podcast, Petor, I can't say his last name because it's Spajic.
Okay.
I hope I didn't say a bad word, but Petar
Yeah.
Spajic. He was talking about how he doesn't have Spotify nowadays, and his entire reasoning is based behind that he just feels like Spotify like is too much. I'm going to play a clip. And I know I said I wasn't really going to have clips in this, but I'm going to play a clip of that. It's kind of a longer clip, but I'll edit it down. But
Yeah.
it's going to explain his kind of viewpoint on it. And I want to kind of talk about that briefly. Let's take a listen.
And that's what sucks.
Yeah.
Like I don't have, I don't have a Spotify. I never have. I don't even know anything about it. I don't give a shit about it, because I'm told it doesn't pay artists. So I have to support the artist. So I don't have it. And that's not me getting on a high horse. It's just me being like, all right, I don't need it because I don't need everything. I know that about myself. Right. If I have everything, I enjoy less, right? I enjoy things I love less.
So what he says there at the very end is kind of like a really interesting point that I've never really thought of too much until I listened to him say that. And, we've been talking about how we used to consume music and comparing to kind of like today and how we consume music today. One of the things that I find so enlightening about that is, man, when I used to go back in time, when I would buy something off iTunes, like just that one album off iTunes, or I'd buy that single CD, is how many times I would listen to that CD because it's all I had, and I really had time to just digest the music, I got to chew it, like if nowadays music is in kind of like what you were saying where, you listen to all this new stuff and it just feels like it sucks. And so you listen to it, you skip it. You don't like it, and I was even listening to something that says like, Spotify only pays if people listen past like the 30-second mark.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so like you have this like, so first off, we all know that Spotify is like an evil corporation, right up there with all the other corporations where they don't pay, the talent as much as they should, because without the music, nobody would listen to Spotify. No one would go there without good, talented music and artists, but artists aren't really getting paid for it. And, part of that, and I'm part of the problem too, because I mostly use Spotify when I want to listen, and I think of it, do I want to give this band a trial run? And hopefully that trial run on Spotify leads to album sales.
Yeah.
I totally agree with him in the idea that, like, I don't know if I need all this music because there is no way in my lifetime I'm going to be able to listen to all the music that is provided by this service. And some of it I don't even necessarily want to listen to. And the artists that I do want to listen to deserve more of my money than Spotify deserves.
No, I mean, I agree. And I do appreciate that I'm able to find so much new music, so many cool bands. Like I've made friends with bands, through Spotify. Like, and I discovered a band, did a video, and then became friends. Did a video on that band, and then became friends with that band. And I probably wouldn't have happened without that. So I mean,
right.
I'm grateful for that, but at the same time, I do agree. Like, I mean, I found a lot of albums last year I would make videos. These are my top 10 or my top 20. I might still only listen to like 3 of those,
Right.
like regularly, and forget what oh yeah, that was cool. I have to remind myself. Like, I feel like albums don't really stick with me as much nowadays.
I agree. Like if
So,
if you took an example of like Avenged Sevenfold and how important the Waking the Fallen album was to me,
mm-hmm.
part of that is because it was one of the few albums I had that sounded like that, and so if I wanted that itch scratched, I had to go to that one. You know?
Yeah.
And now, like, and this is really enlightening, to how many bands are out there and how many bands do kind of have that sound, and that's always like one of those things where like, I don't know how whether it was like the MySpace or Pure Volume or, like being told by other people what it was that I liked because that was what was popular enough to get noticed. With Spotify, I feel like it's almost overwhelming, and I don't know how to. I don't have like a system to like. Okay, well, here's my baseline. Anything that's worse than this, I don't want it. Anything better than this, I want it. Like I don't know how to like have a filter for what I necessarily want to listen to. And I think it's just like not that I want to be told what to listen to, but it's really hard sometimes. It's hard to find like the diamond in the rough. Like one of my new favorite groups is Johnny Booth.
Yep.
And you're the one that
1000%.
told me about them, but you found them how?
Through Spotify.
Through Spotify.
Yep.
So there's like, I think what stinks for me, and I should probably put my money where my mouth is and go out and actually purchase their album.
Yeah, I need to.
Because I honestly really like it. I want them to have the money and support. And if you aren't aware of how much Spotify pays artists, not a lot.
I think most people in this industry know that thing.
Well, what we were looking at, like, if you were to sell 1 million copies or have 1 million listens on Spotify, like the number was like, if you sold those albums, you were making way more than you would off those just streams, which I honestly, I understand. But nowadays, like owning a physical copy is going to be a harder and harder thing to do because less and less things are going to have those physical copy. Like I actually like CDs. I prefer having a CD to a downloaded copy, and that's just going to go away. Luckily, my car still has a CD player. In this, year of our Lord, 2024, I just think it's like one of those things of like, Justin, if Spotify is what it is now, and it's been, said it's the Netflix of music. Well, what's happened to Netflix?
I mean, compared how they started to what they are now,
What is eventually the future of music going to for like Spotify? Is someone going to come in and steal their thunder? Are artists on BMI eventually going to have to where like, because you can see that now is like, unless you're paying these for these streaming services, you sometimes like, or like if you're like, okay, this isn't available in your country.
Yeah.
Or stuff like that. So you're not going to have a way to consume music. And eventually I could see this going the way of like, if the music industry treats Spotify the way that the movie and TV industry treated Netflix, Spotify's done. And then you're going to have all these other subscriptions in order to enjoy your music.
There's no telling, man. I mean, it's hard, obviously, to picture change with anything, but what could be better than this? It's hard to say,
Well, just like how I think, 10 years ago, Netflix was like, everyone had Netflix. My TV remote has a Netflix button that annoys me now when I press it because guess who got rid of Netflix?
Yeah.
What
does it do?
It goes to the page where it's like, please come back. And then I'm like, oops, I meant to press my other button.
Yeah.
And it may, it kind of guilts me a little bit, but that's, That's the thing that I'm worried about. And I think I've lost touch with a lot of the music I listen to.
Yeah.
And it's here today, gone tomorrow. Like I'll listen to something, I'll really enjoy it, and then I won't listen to it again ever, maybe. Or I'll go back to it. But like the albums that we've been reviewing, like these first 4 that we've done, all these albums were they were in my radar. They were in my CD collection. They were there. I was making mixtapes with them. I felt so much more engaged with that music. I don't know what the music industry needs to do. Because like I said, I think the moment that, because you have your big hitters, like, let's face it, Spotify is Netflix. Apple Music is Hulu. YouTube Music is, I was going to say YouTube, but I mean, YouTube is YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, no one, who uses YouTube Music? It's like Peacock.
Right. I have Peacock.
I don't know. Peacock app is terrible.
I don't use the app.
Okay. Well,
but I use what was built into my TV. Anywho.
Oh, there you go.
And I think, dude, you're seeing it with what are these platforms going to be able to offer if they don't become their own labels, if they don't take the route of these studios? And who knows, artists may just start getting fed up. You've seen people like Kanye West try to start his own music streaming platform. I want to say there's a couple more artists that have tried I think Taylor Swift took her music off Spotify for a minute.
But she came back.
How much, dude, how much money do you think Spotify was they were probably scared. Okay, you cannot tell me that Taylor Swift, at least at the time when she did that, was probably not the number one listened to artist on Spotify.
Oh, yeah.
And then when she was like, I could just make way more money if I just go do this other thing. And then everyone was like, where's Taylor going? We're following her, Yeah. And Spotify was like, we will print money for you. We will do what we need. She probably does. She probably, out of the billions of dollars that Spotify makes, she probably gets the largest percent cut per stream out of any artist.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the same across the board or if it does change for your larger artists.
From my understanding, it's they use the slice of pie.
Okay.
Whoever gets the most downloads gets the biggest slice of that pie.
I mean, yeah.
And that makes sense because you're the one everyone's there for. But I was also listening to where people are now making more music for TikToks.
Yeah.
And TikToks have a very particular time limit. So, and even with Spotify, how I said earlier that, you only get your credit towards your stream if it's 30 seconds. So songs are being written in order to make money, but they're trying to maximize the amount of hook, catch, and all of that within the first 30 seconds of their songs. I think music is going to change.
Well, I mean, Rick Beato did a video on this. I didn't show you this one, but it was talking about song lengths nowadays, and the standard is 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Which, in the 90s, he was going down the list of all the grunge, and it was 5 minutes was the minimum. You'd have some at 4:40 something, and 5:15.
Yeah.
And now it's just, get in, get out, 2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes. And especially front loading the song. You will hear most new songs, you're going to hear the hook and the chorus within the first 30 seconds of the song, or as soon as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the artist doesn't get streamed for that full amount of time, they don't get credit. They don't get paid for it. And I think you have to do anything that you need. It's amazing how many songs my girlfriend, my significant other, she knows just from TikTok algorithms and stuff being played in videos. And I feel like there's so many artists that I see on TikTok that are, writing these songs that will fit nice and tight in that, what's the standard TikTok link?
Well,
It varies by
yeah.
yeah.
I mean they have it. You can pretty much have it as long as you want. Well, maybe not. Maybe I think 10 minutes is like maximum, but yeah, I mean you want it like a minute.
Yeah,
Like
okay. Well,
that's
maybe
about
not
it.
what they can limit you to, but like what I mean, honestly, dude, I feel like whenever I'm on TikTok, you get 5 seconds, and that's
Yeah, I
a
mean that's
generous five.
and that's how it is with you know visual media is you got to hook them in the first 2 seconds or they ain't watching your video.
Yeah.
So
Well, and one last thing, man. With
yeah.
all this, what is something you think music could bring new to the table, and not just in how we consume music? Like obviously the experience is mostly like using our ears. Waka waka, that's a joke. But with technology, visual media has gotten so much better.
Yeah.
Like when you think of like movies 10 years ago to movies nowadays, it's night and day difference. You could see a movie from 10 years ago and go like, "Oh my god, we
Yeah.
this was good back then. Now it looks awful." My
I mean, it's
thing,
still some.
I want to bring this up as kind of a last talking point is, do you think there's something that music can do? Because I think the auditory, like I don't know too many people that are necessarily audiophiles.
Yeah.
Like the
I mean,
quality of your music sounding pristine.
yeah. I mean that's massive with modern metal these days.
Yeah.
Like just overproduced. Everything's locked into the grid, cut up perfectly. But I mean, and it all has a specific sound. Like that's what's it's just I don't know the right word. I can't do it all the time. And
You
yep, there
can't.
it is, the one time.
Yep.
Saw her in the background.
Oh, did you? I don't know what she's
Yeah,
doing. Um, but
that's
yeah,
hard, man. Like it's for our like what we typically listen to. I mean, it's getting overproduced, and it's just
so do you think we need to
technology's
go
getting better.
more to a raw sound?
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, the
Okay.
bands that do it, that's their sound. So I mean, it fits, and some
Right.
of it's really, really cool. Like it makes sense to do that. When we've talked about the band we were in before, where it was kind of on the same.
I'm so sorry.
You're good.
Sorry.
Kind of in line with that. Like we wanted everything to be as perfect as we could get it. And like
Yeah.
I'm just me personally, I'm just not about that life. Like I hardly ever quantize anything I do. Like when I'm recording, at least my guitar parts, I'll have drum and bass locked to a grid and stuff, but I'll move things ever so slightly so it feels more human
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm not about that life. It's hard to say, man. There's no telling. Like
Well, do you think there's a way that we can enhance music experience? Like to where it's like audio.
yeah,
Obviously, you have like the visual aspect in like music videos, and you have like the live stuff, which is really cool. But I think when it comes to like how we as people consume our music, do you think we're ever gonna have like we're gonna look back at music, how music sounded 10 years from now, and have that same feeling like we do visually with like how much better movies are?
hard to say, man. I mean, it's you
We're
know.
not experts, so I'm not expecting Justin to necessarily have the insight. But I just thought it was
I
kind of
mean,
an
it's just
interesting
like
idea. Is like, how is music gonna
yeah.
evolve?
I can't. I like. What else can you do? Like, I mean, life finds a way.
Yeah,
Uh, but music. Like, I heard a song today on the way home from a reaction channel. Shout out Metalburb. Uh, and it was the crazy. Like, it was like a jazz 80s like, but it also had like polyphia elements to it.
yeah.
Like
Oh, I'm down for that.
ridiculous. And I was like, like I've heard this before, but the execution was just I mean it's still got your nostalgia like 80s. Like I feel like people try to replicate nostalgia. Like no one's doing
New.
Necessarily anything just, way new and innovative to me. It's just, I'm a nostalgia kid. Obviously, that's what this podcast is
Right.
we're talking about all these albums, but I have no idea how.
Yeah. It might be a loaded question.
Like,
but
it is we
We're-
already have an app to access to all the music essentially in the world.
Right. At
So
our
it's like,
fingertips. Any
Yeah,
sound
like
you
what-
want, any style you want. And
yeah.
honestly, I
And
mean,
then
like,
AI is going to be a big,
wait till the robots start writing songs, Justin.
They already are.
We're done. The robots are going to
that's
start writing
where-
music, and then they're going to start doing
yeah.
podcasts. And what's the next thing I want to do with my life?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I want to be a farmer. Oh, there's robots in farming.
Dude, it's going to be. That's where it's headed.
Yeah.
Whatever AI does is, we have to live with it. So.
We have to live with it. Well, Justin, AI is taking over. And I think this is a
Yes.
good stopping point for our podcast, my dude. This was
Yeah, man.
so much fun. I've thoroughly enjoyed reminiscing about how I used to listen to music and all the weird things we used to have to do to like listen to the music. It wasn't as simple as all this Spotify as we have it nowadays,
Felt a little more connection with it.
Yeah.
but
I definitely felt more
there's
connected with my music.
Pros and cons to all of it. There
I
just
know.
is.
Because here's the thing, like I want to support artists, but I also like the ability to give them a little trial period.
Yep.
I like having the convenience of having all my music in a device that can fit in my hand instead of having a notebook. I like the reliability of that device as opposed to a CD player that skips when you at it.
Yeah.
It was definitely not better back then, but I feel like
No.
we traded one set of flaws for more other sets of flaws,
Yeah.
whether it be your moralistic flaws or your, like, dude, there's just so much. It's like, it's overwhelming.
It is. Like, again, pros and cons, man.
Pros
Like,
and cons.
it's hard to say what I would, if I had to pick one or the other. If I had a choice, I don't know if I could right now.
I would go back if I still had the same amount of time that I had when I was back then. Because now I ain't got time for that.
Yeah.
I ain't got time to sit there and type in all the album info into my Spotify or my iTunes playlist.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right.
Man.
Well, dude, I think this was a really good first topics episode. How'd you feel with it?
Oh yeah, it was, especially finding this thing again and just like, just remembering those times, man.
Remembering those
Good
times.
time.
Well, everyone, thank y'all for listening. You can
Yeah, thank
follow
you.
us at Beardsby Rankin on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can also follow Justin at Justin Scott Riffs for great guitar playing content. I don't have a
Yeah.
riff of the week, but we have one for our last episode, and we will announce it on the next episode. Yep.
Which we should be back to our regularly scheduled. Wow, I can't.
Yeah.
Regularly scheduled programming.
Right.
And we're doing Circa Survive Juturna
Yes, sir.
next week.
Juturna
So-
by Circa Survive. Such a good album.
Yeah, man.
It still holds up. And we wanted to take this little detour this week, give it a little try, see what you guys think of it. If you guys enjoy us rambling about how things were in the yesteryear or even our thoughts on current today topics, we will do this again, especially because someone's got a little something special coming out in a couple months
Yeah.
that might make this have to be a little bit more of the
I don't know if you can, a little bit of that.
oh my gosh. I'm so upset. I had my mug that says Cat Dad on it, and I was gonna sip on it, but I didn't bring any liquids for me to drink on today.
Yeah, so be prepared for a little bit more of these side quests.
Side
I don't know what
quests.
to call it. What we should call it.
I like that. The nerd in me just loves it.
I know that's the first thing that came to mind. So
Oh, dude, that's how we're gonna name it. This is the side
All right.
quest, the topics. But if you would like to listen along with us on Circus Survive's album and give us your ranking, comment us anywhere you can find us at Beersby Rankin, my bad, on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube.
right here.
You know, I love seeing the comments and I love seeing the discussion. I hope this opens up some discussion. So please leave your thoughts about what you think about the ways that we consume music, whether it's, how you used to consume it, how you currently are consuming it, or even your thoughts about how we're gonna consume it. Justin, we may use our eyeballs. And not in like the way you're thinking. I'm saying like vibrations going through the air into our ears. Dude, that's it. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
Headphones will make our whole head, we will like trip. It will shake the ears. The ears will send a vibrating source to the eyeballs. The eyeballs will shake. They will see the images. Our noses will smell the smells. Our tongues will taste the tastes. And we will be totally enraptured in at least.
Have you been to the future? Have you seen this?
I've seen this, man. You're not going to be allowed to listen to music and drive. It'll be illegal.
It sounds like a good time.
But we'll have self-driving cars by that point, so it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right, man.
Thank you, guys.
Till next week.
Till next week. Bye.
See you later.
Bye.